Hello there, hi. Welcome to Butterfly Effect, a podcast all about interviewing people. I'm your host, Tristan Ettleman. Welcome today. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're listening. I've been a little stressed lately. I've got a lot of projects in the works, and it ends up taking a toll. But at the end of the day, you just have to be like, all right, what are the stakes here? Okay, they're kind of high. They're important to me. But, whatever. You have to just kind of be like, at some point, I'm tired of worrying. Things will work out, and it'll be all right. So, that's a good message. That's a good realization. But usually you come to the realization after everything ends up being all right. So it's hard to tell yourself that in the middle of the stress and the worry. But, you should. It's important to not be freaking out all the time. So, anyways, I was just ruminating on stress. Stress is a big thing in this culture, I think. It breeds stress, and we need to be able to handle it. Anyway, so today on the show, I have Streeter Seidell. I talked to Streeter Seidell, who is a comedian, formerly of CollegeHumor, and currently a writer at SNL, Saturday Night Live. It's a big deal, big show. And Streeter was very, very kind to come on the show. It got him in a little bit of a hiatus with SNL. And we had a good talk. I probably embarrassed myself with my knowledge of the Eastern Seaboard, which I ended up going to after this conversation for the first time. I'm a West Coast non-traveling person for the most part, and I think I learned a lot about the East Coast while I was there, as I've mentioned a few times about New York City specifically, which is, as Streeter and I talk about, a different beast entirely. And ultimately, I was worried when I was going. I'm like, oh man, the East Coast, it's going to be different. And it's like, yeah, sure it is in some ways, but as Streeter mentions in the interview, it's it's just more people. It's just everyone. We're all humans. We all do the same things, basically. But yeah, you should listen to Streeter's podcast, Talk of Shame. It's really funny. And of course, SNL. I'm going to drive an audience to SNL. But, alright, I'm going to stop rambling on here and let you listen to this interview with Streeter. It went really well. I was really excited to do it. I think we had a good conversation. It was fun. It was a fun time, and I hope you enjoy it as well. So I'll see you on the other side. What have you been up to lately? Is there a little break in SNL, right?
Yeah. Couple weeks off.
Yeah.
Haven't been doing much, I'll be honest
Good.
with you. It's been real. My plan was to be very productive and go out and enjoy, the world and everything, but it's been raining and really cold, so I haven't really done anything.
Well, that's kind of what breaks like that are for, I guess. But
yeah, it always makes me feel guilty, though. Like,
yeah, no, I totally feel that.
Should have taken more advantage of this unprecedented lump of free time.
But sometimes you need that, so
true.
It all works out.
True.
So how's the? I know you're doing the podcast too, Talk of Shame.
Mm-hmm.
How's that coming along? Enjoying it?
Good, yeah. It's fun. I mean, it's really fun for me to hear people's embarrassing stories, and like a lot of them are of the I shat myself variety, But for some reason, I always find them entertaining. Like, maybe it's because I'm looking at the person as they're telling me. And sometimes it's hard to reconcile this, successful, pretty put-together person with with the fact that at one point they just unloaded in their own pants and panicked and didn't know what to do about it.
Well, it makes them human, and we're all humans. We all
shit our pants. I don't know about that. I don't know if we all do it, but
that's true.
Certainly a large percentage of adults seem to have done it at one point.
I know. I'm surprised by how many people have like shit themselves. I don't have a conscious moment of shitting myself.
Yeah,
the last time it happened was when I was a baby. Like, I don't know. I don't remember anything.
I think I'm one of the few people featured on my podcast that hasn't shit their pants. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm missing out, you know?
Maybe you should just change the name of the podcast.
I legitimately thought of doing that at one point.
Well, I mean, the name of the podcast as it is great. I had told a friend about it, and we were like just jealous that like it's just such a great like concept and name, and like also white wine. Like you have this like knack to get like these, I don't know, like high concept, just really funny ideas.
Let's call them what they are. They're shitty puns.
They're
sure. Stupid, shitty pun. And I have a very
the idea behind them is
relationship.
Hilarious. Yeah, but the simplicity of it, I think, is really funny. Like it fits. It's perfect.
I mean, I hate puns. I think puns are so stupid. I hate them so much, but I undeniably enjoy the cleverness of a good one, even though I hate it at the same time.
I think that's a lot of people's inclination to puns, because you just hate them, but you're like, I kind of have to like it a little bit because some of them are clever.
I mean, I've never laughed out loud at a pun. So when people say puns are funny, I'm like, that's not true. You're not like, if you want to watch the worst video ever, there's one on YouTube of like the World Pun Championships.
Oh my god!
And it's these people just like going up on stage and they like recite a little monologue that is like all puns, and you want to punch every single person in the face when they're done. But at the same time, it's very impressive on like an intellectual level or something where
well, they don't make you laugh; they just make you go, "Oh, okay, yeah."
They make me be like, "Oh, god damn, that's so clever! Oh, I hate this guy." Not out of jealousy either, just out of no. Like I find this person so annoying.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand that. I have a few friends that are like that, and it's they're hard to be around.
Yeah.
But no, so I mean, are you doing it weekly? I mean, I was keeping up for a while there, but it's been busy.
That is the idea.
Right.
I fall short of that more than I should.
Yeah, I mean,
the simple fact is like SNL's schedule is insane. And it doesn't allow for a lot of other activities to take place during a show week. And if I get behind on like booking someone or arranging someone or even just time to like edit the episode, and there's very minimal editing, but it still requires me to like spend an hour putting all the little clips together and everything. Right. If I fall behind, there's just no way to catch up while I'm working. So, apologies to any dual listeners there.
Well, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, I think most people would understand that SNL's kind of a big thing. That's kind of a focus.
I hope so. I don't think anyone. If there's someone who just, I mean, so I love this podcast, Radio Lab. Love it. Everyone loves it. It's great.
Yeah.
And they like, at one point, I think they stopped being distributed by NPR, and they went just like they broke away and they went to like whatever, and then I feel like it used to be weekly, and then it went down to like bi-weekly or like once every 3 weeks, and it made me like legitimately mad because I was like, no, where is I was planning on listening to this, ugh. So I'm sure there are some people who like my podcast a lot, and there's no reasonable excuse I could give them that would make them not mad that I'm so lazy about it.
But it's I mean, that's just kind of weird though to me. Like the internet, not what you were talking about personally, but like the internet culture of like, I need my content now on a set schedule. It's like just like very entitled, I guess. But I'm that way too. Like honestly, I mean, I'm sure if a podcast isn't showing up in my feed, I'm like, where is it?
It's honestly, it's a fair deal because it's like these are the people that enable me to make a living talking, which is an insane thing to be able to do. And so they sort of demand a certain level of professionalism in return. And when I don't deliver that, I think they're justified in being like, get your shit together, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Some people like take it over the top, but you're right. At some level, there is kind of an expectation there. But I don't know. I'm just so used to the overreactionary nature of the internet. It gets tiring at times.
It's exhausting. I kind of like stopped going on the internet. Like,
really?
Just because I felt like, I mean, I spent a good, 9 years of my life just so much on the internet, like, first thing in the morning till like right when I went to bed, and just like absorbing, keeping track of as much like, internet culture as I could. And it's just fucking exhausting after a while. You're like,
it's pretty awful.
What's the
like,
new video that everyone's talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, wait. And then what's the parody of that?
Right.
And like when I left CollegeHumor, I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm just
it wasn't part of your job
take
description anymore.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have to do it for work anymore. So like it's kind of like I bet that was kind of freeing.
It was so nice. And the speed with which you no longer like know what's going on is shocking. Like within a month, I just like did not know anything. Like all the stuff that I knew was gone, and there was all this new shit.
Yeah.
Like all these new videos and GIFs and memes and stuff that like I was completely unaware of.
Well, that's I like literally the other day. Like, have you seen this damn Daniel thing?
Yeah, I did see that with this white. What is it, like the white
bands? Yeah, which it's pretty funny, but the like I saw seen people like just quoting it all around the place, and I like looked it up, and it happened like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, oh well, okay, I guess I missed out on that. And like I just I'm really active like that, and I don't know.
Internet's
I disengaged intentionally.
It's a young man's game. I mean, when I was like 23, to keep up with that stuff was much easier than when I was, 30.
Well, look, I'm 19 in college, and I still can't keep up with it. So, like, it's
I think it's growing at an exponential rate. Like, when I started, started at CollegeHumor, it was still a thing to like broadband. If you like had broadband, it was still like, whoa, cool, like nice internet speed. And there just wasn't like Twitter, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't Instagram, like none of that stuff that allows people to make stuff on such an industrial scale of content. It was still like there'd be like one video a month that like was big, Yeah. Which is
I'm convinced
insane.
This is how we're gonna end. It'll lead to something bad. All of it.
I think internet's probably got another maybe 10 years in it
before it implodes.
Yeah, I think it's just going to go to like VR stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like I think it'll just be like email. What? I'm not going to read. I just put on my little thing and I go to this like special room where like all my friends have like sent messages to me and I can like go through that. Like it'd be so much better.
The dystopia is going to be real, man. I don't know.
I'm into it.
Yeah, it's exciting, I guess.
Like I said, it's raining and cold here, so like if I could just strap on a VR headset and like go somewhere cool, I'd rather do that. Yeah.
I hear it's miserable there right now.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna
do? Try through it. So where are you from?
Connecticut.
And where in Connecticut?
I'm from a town called Madison. That's like near New Haven. It's a tiny little town.
It was tiny.
Even most people like don't know New Haven. When I'm like, it's near New Haven, they're like, and what is that? And I have to be like, it's near New York.
I don't know how, but New Haven is the only Connecticut city I know.
Maybe from
Except
Yale.
Well, I mean, okay.
Yale is there.
Is Hartford in Connecticut?
Yeah, that's the capital.
Okay.
Dude, you're in college. You didn't know that?
I mean,
Actually, don't know the capital of Arizona. What is it? Wait, hold on. Don't tell me.
I don't know.
Flagstaff?
In Phoenix?
In Phoenix? I'm like ripping on you for not knowing Hartford, and I'm like, Arizona's a much bigger state, and I do not know the capital of it.
I'm a West Coast guy through and through. I have not been further east than Arizona in my entire life.
That's insane.
I'm going to New York in like a week, so that'll be a thing. But yeah, this is the furthest. Well, that's not true. I've been up north to like Canada and probably further east that way. I don't know, but I haven't been through most of the continental United States.
Like I checked out Banff. That was great.
I did go to Banff. I went to Calgary and Banff and Edmonton.
The East is a wonder of man, and the West is a wonder of nature. That's my feeling. Like everything in the West is like so big and beautiful and natural, and like the cities are kind of like whatever, you know.
Yeah,
there's not much in LA that I'm like, whoa, cool.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that they're like in San Francisco too, that they're just spitting in God's face, like building houses on like shaking mountains and being like, yeah, this is gonna work out.
Right along the San Andreas Fault.
Yeah, like it's just so cocky. There's something I admire about it. But then you come to the East and it's just like the nature's not as good, I guess. But damn, do we know how to build stuff?
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, it's just a totally different culture, I feel like. A different world, West and East Coast. But
don't bring a gun.
Wasn't planning on it.
Cool.
Taking a plane.
Yeah. That's not a good thing to do, right?
No.
I don't think it's that different. I mean, I've traveled all over the country and, like, definitely got into some pretty sort of religious conservative spots that are very,
in that regard.
Yeah, like very much different culture from where I'm from.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, it's everyone's just within a couple points of each other.
No, I mean, yeah, they're all humans. I feel like I don't know. My girlfriend lives in New York, so she tells me stories and things. And I just feel like
she's selling porky pies, man. She's telling this.
Just the pace of it is different in the West and East Coast. But I guess I'll find out for myself.
Yeah, I would say that's maybe the only. But again, that's only really localized to like New York. I don't think like the pace of Pittsburgh is like the same breakneck kind of manic energy that New York runs on. I mean, you shouldn't come to New York unless you absolutely want to be better than everyone else. Like, it's just a competitive place. And if you're ambitious, it's like a great place to, stack yourself up against the competition and learn from the best people. But if that's not your goal, if you want to have just like a happy life and do okay, then like, there's so many other places to be. Don't come here.
There's literally anywhere else in the world.
Yeah.
So part of that kind of leads into what we were talking about a little bit. Like, so you were from this small town.
Yeah.
What was there an industry there that was like, was there the place everyone worked at? Like I've found is common with small towns?
No, not really. I mean, it was very much like just a quintessential, like, little New England coastal town, like a little downtown. There still is no big box stores, like no Walmart, no McDonald's, like, but it's not like a rural. It's not like farms and like my nearest neighbor is 20 miles away. It's very much like, I don't even want to say suburban because it's so old that it's not like a planned. Suburbia. Yeah, it was like not a planned community. It just sort of grew over the last 400 years. But yeah, I mean, it's just like a quaint, nice little downtown, very upper middle class, very wealthy, but not like extreme Connecticut wealth. Connecticut's super rich. For any West Coast listeners you have.
Yeah.
But most of that wealth is concentrated down in the southwest corner, like down by where New York is, because it's all New York money, and they just buy these big estates in Connecticut, and they that's where they live in these huge mansions. Right. But most of the coastline of Connecticut's pretty well off. Very liberal, I don't know.
What did your parents do?
Dad's a social worker. My mom's a college professor.
Okay, so they weren't necessarily in that, super well-off group of,
No, I think we were pretty solidly, middle class.
Right.
Not, middle class in the old sense of, blue-collar, got a good union factory job.
Yeah.
Middle class in the new meaning of the word, which is,
I totally know what you mean.
College professors, doctors, lawyers, that level, not bankers.
Yeah. And so did you feel out of place in that regard, or was it was most of the town like that? Just kind of this...
Most of the town was...
comfortable living...
Yeah, I'd say most of the town was like that. I mean, who knows? I was a kid, I didn't really think about money or or status or anything, but it seemed like most of my friends were in a similar tax bracket, I'll say.
Right. You described the state as very rich, so I wasn't sure if that was a kind of an obvious thing to you when you were growing up, or if that's just kind of something you learned about as you...
Well, we were always told, because the town was so liberal, we were always made very aware of the fact that we had it really good,
Right.
And very aware that, not everybody had it so good. So maybe I internalized that as a kid and started to think I was, better off than I actually was. Because I had so many people being like, you're lucky. Not everybody gets these opportunities,
Yeah. And I guess, at some level that's true, but it's not it's not comforting when things are going wrong in some way for you.
It's definitely true.
It's like the, you have a problem, but then you can go, well, there's people starving elsewhere. It's that's true, but there's also issues going on within my little sphere of whatever it is.
Everybody's got their own problems, and they're always going to bitch it. That's why I started White Wine. It was these are not real problems to most people in the world. Most people aren't lucky enough to have these problems.
Right.
But that doesn't invalidate them as problems.
Yeah.
They are
but it
problems
is funny.
In your world. It's all relative.
There you go.
That's the word.
So, at an early age, or going into high school-ish, did you know what you were wanting to do? What was kind of the thought?
I don't know. I don't remember ever, very clearly being this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. I think I had a lot of, romantic notions that I was going to be a musician or some famous actor or something. And, the thing is, if I never, did school plays or anything. I just thought in my head, well, yeah, I'll be a famous actor, of course. It'll just, somebody's going door to door looking for famous actors, and they'll knock on my door at some point. I knew that I didn't want... I think there was a part of me that was going to be a history professor or something like that, because I just didn't realize that you can do whatever you want. Really, right. You just have to do it, So I don't know if that makes sense, but
totally.
When I started doing stand-up, I was kind of seeing people who had careers in comedy, and a lot of them were pretty sad ones, when you're starting out in comedy, you're doing off nights at clubs, and you're seeing these kind of lifers come in who are been doing club gigs since the 70s and stuff, and I was not into that. I was I do not want that. But every now and then you just see some super famous, incredibly wealthy comic just pop in to do a set, and you're ooh, that's interesting. And then I just sort of met people who had careers in entertainment that weren't movie star. And I was oh, there's this whole world around these pieces of media, and there's like plenty of opportunity there. I think you just need to start doing it, you know?
Right.
And so I just, my whole career just sort of happened to me, like with a little nudges from myself, but I kind of just like rolled with the punches for a long time. I wasn't as proactive or driven towards one certain goal. You know, like I wasn't like, I am going to be a TV show director. And I didn't like have a thing like that in my head. I was like, all this stuff is pretty interesting to me, like the writing, performing, acting to some degree. Like it was all very interesting. And I was like, let me just see if there's a place I can dabble in everything. And that turned out to be CollegeHumor, which was great.
Right. Well, I think that sets you up for success more so than having. I mean, it can go either way, right? You can be really driven to do one thing, and you can, work at it and get there, or you cannot get there and just be totally broken by that.
I took the coward's way, which is
I think it's the smart way.
I'm happy with anything. The people who really, I feel like the people who really become legends in whatever they're doing are the people who hone in on one thing.
Sure.
And are like, this is what I do. Like, I have friends who are stand-ups who I think will be the next generation of, like, legendary comics who are not at all interested in being on a sitcom or writing a film or they're just like, stand-up. That's what I do. I'm a stand-up. I don't care about any of this other stuff. That's all I'm going to do. And they naturally, because they're so focused, just are better. Over time, they're just better than everyone else because it's all they're doing.
Yeah. But for every one of those, there's probably like 10 other ones that don't reach that level.
It's incredible. The level of commitment and being okay with not doing it. Like not.
That's true, yeah.
It's weird because I feel like entertainment, for the most part, like any sort of performing art, whether it's acting or stand-up or music, it's really the only career where unless you sort of hit the absolute highest level of fame and maintain it until you die, people kind of look at you as like a failure.
Right.
Yeah. Where for me, it was always like, if I can live my whole life earning enough money to do this thing, that to me is a win.
Yeah.
Because so few people get that opportunity. But I think that is not how society views it. Like, even actors, like, there are actors who were, major movie stars in the 90s or whatever, who aren't working today, and everyone's like, that guy has been loser, failure. And it's like, that guy was in 5 movies. Like, you would never say that about any other career. Like, you wouldn't be like to like a teacher. You wouldn't be like, oh, you didn't become Secretary of Education? Oh my God, you failed. You know what I mean? Like it's. Yeah. But for some reason in entertainment, it's like this weird. Unless you hit that super high level and stay there forever, people kind of write you off. Yeah. Which is weird.
It's kind of awful.
Yeah. So I'm very conscious of that, and I try not to do that to those people who sort of stay in that middle level for their whole career. Like, I try not to be like, oh man, he never made it. I try to be like, no, that person made it completely. Like, they worked and got paid and had a home and weren't homeless, which is
which is the goal.
a huge success.
Yeah. Yeah, in most people's books, I would think.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about is kind of exemplified by like the "Where Are They Now" kind of articles and stuff like that. Like, especially with like child actors and stuff like that. It's like they didn't want to do that in the first place. They just wanted to. They probably got pushed into it by their parents. But that is strange. I guess it's because it's predicated on viewership, anyways. Like, you need people to see the thing that you're making. So I guess if not a bunch of people are seeing it anymore, that it's considered less. But
I totally understand it. I get where the feeling comes from. It's just an odd thing.
Yeah, I agree. So you were in Connecticut. All the stuff you were talking about, like seeing comics and stuff, that wasn't still in Connecticut, was it? Did you?
No.
Did you move to New York, or what were you doing into college, out of high school?
I went to school in New York at a school called Fordham.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I started doing stand-up when I was a sophomore.
Mm-hmm.
Just because all my other friends had, like, a thing that they were doing, that they were into, and I felt like I didn't have one. I was like, one of my friends was like, I'm going to be a journalist, and he was so set on that, and he did become one, and he's done very well, but, like, and I was like, oh, I need a thing. Like, I need something to do here. And, I felt like I was funny, and I felt like I had done a few things in high school that were, like, not stand-up, but on a stage in front of people being funny. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, let me give that a shot, and did it one night, and it went well, and just kept doing it, and then it kind of just, like, morphed into my thing. It was not a totally conscious move to be like, I'm going to be a comedian, but I tried it on, and it kind of felt good to be like, yeah, a comedian, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Right, yeah, definitely.
So was comedy a big influence when you were growing up?
Yeah, of course. I mean, what teenage boy, like, is not into comedy?
Well, I talk to people and they're like, yeah, I don't really. First of all, they're like, I don't really like movies, and I want to go insane. And they're like, yeah, I don't really. Funny things aren't really my thing. I'm like, well, are you a human being? Like, what is? I mean, what are you doing?
From where I was standing, just like pretty much everybody was into comedy up to a certain age, like
right.
Because most kids' TV is funny.
Sure.
There's not a lot of kids' TV that's like not meant to make the kids laugh. There's not a lot of like.
But I think to that point, like,
at
some point though, they think it's childish,
right?
That things are funny. I think that's like kind of the weird thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think teenagers, like, on the whole, are a pretty serious bunch, like a very self-serious group of people, which is which is extremely funny. I think. Like, I just remember how serious I was as a teenager, and it makes me laugh. You're just so sincere and so heartfelt about everything. But I always just loved funny stuff. I think my parents were like, would talk up SNL because they were huge fans when the show came out. I mean, everyone was. It was like this cultural bombshell when it hit. And so they would always, like, kind of point to that as, like, that's funny. That's what's funny. So I watched that from a super young age, and I loved, like, all the Nickelodeon, like, sketch shows, like, all the Snick material I was into, which is probably, like, you're probably too young for that. That was
I don't remember.
That was big stuff for people my age.
What was the one with, that, like, Amanda Bynes was on?
All That.
Stuff? Was that late? Yeah, All That. There you go.
All That.
Yeah.
Which was kind of like a new...
Yeah, it was like late 90s, wasn't it?
No, I'd say like... I think it ran for many, many years.
Really?
But the term All That was a new term. Because people would say all that in a bag of chips, and that was like a very brand new thing people were into saying. And All That was... it was for like... If you were a little older. Like, it was on later at night than all the other ones, and like... It was like your own little SNL for... if you were a little kid.
That's great. That's a great, like, influence. What was the era of SNL that you were watching at the time?
I was really lucky in that when I watched it on NBC, like, live as much as I could. And my parents were cool with that, like me staying up to watch it. But I probably started watching sort of the tail end of the Dana Carvey years, Phil Hartman, John Lovitz, like that cast, and then pretty much stayed with it since. But I also lucked out in that Comedy Central became a thing when I was in middle school, and they would just re-air all these old ones, so I was able to watch those too.
Oh, so you had all this SNL going on, all this sketch stuff going on.
Yeah.
So were you watching stand-up people?
Yeah.
Too?
Stand-up as well. I mean, when Comedy Central came on, I was like, oh, here we go.
When you got into doing stand-up, were you channeling anything, or like consciously or unconsciously, or?
I don't know. I almost certainly was.
Yeah.
Just sort of, like mimicking comics that I looked up to, but I have trouble naming one, because it was just, I think my comedy is still very much, I don't want to slam myself, like undefined or something. I think there's not a style to it that is so specific to me. And that's that's not a conscious thing. I just like to do, I like to keep it varied, I guess. And it's like that with most things I do. I get bored of doing the same thing. So if I had this like very defined comic persona, I feel like it would eventually, I'd start to chafe. It would feel limiting or something like that.
Well, yeah, I think that's a good way to go, I think. Just because, like you said, it's
we'll
kind of creatively...
Again,
creatively,
the coward's way.
But the coward's way is always the smartest way. I think I'm kind of the same way in some respects. But so you were doing stand-up in college. Well, were you just kind of doing it for fun? At what level did you become like, this could be a career, whether it's stand-up or writing or whatever, performing in some way?
Yeah, I was definitely just doing it for fun. And I still, on some level, just do it for fun. I've sort of made writing my main job.
Yeah.
And not that I take it more seriously, but I have a lot more, I count on it for a lot more of like my daily needs. So stand-up to me, just just being on stage is such a blast. Like, it's so fun. And I feel like if I made it my main thing, it would put a pressure on it that I wouldn't want, that would make it less fun and more of a job. I would probably take it much more seriously as well, which would mean it would probably be a lot better. But for now, at least, I just want to keep it as a fun thing I do. So I never looked at stand-up as like, this is my career. It was more like, this is a piece of a larger career in comedy. And I sort of came around at a time when that was becoming the norm. Like, it wasn't that you had to just be a stand-up or you had to just be a writer. Like, people were starting to do all kinds of stuff, and so I didn't feel like that was a weird thing, that I didn't have this one thing that I was doing. Right.
It's kind of the Renaissance man.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the group of people who came around right before me, it was like, it was like Paul Scheer and Aziz and Mulaney and a lot of those guys, and Chelsea Peretti, and like they all had these multiple things that they were doing.
Right.
It wasn't just like they weren't just stand-ups. They were making like web videos, and they were writing, and they were doing like writing books and things like.
Right.
They were kind of just dabbling in a lot of stuff, and that was much more interesting to me than like just being a pure stand-up or a pure writer.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's going in a lot of things. Like journalism, the idea is, well, it kind of was the idea for a while there. The multimedia journalist was like really valuable, right? Like, if you can shoot, edit, report your own stories, that's like the best gig.
A real nice way to like cut the payroll down too.
Exactly, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's like we can pay one person to do 4 jobs.
In my biz, they're called multi-hyphenates. Actor, writer, director, producer.
Oh, okay. That's funny. Yeah, and the term MMJ within journalism has now become kind of like especially in broadcast, is kind of like not necessarily as desirable anymore, because they realized like that doesn't necessarily lead to like great stuff. But I think what you're talking about with entertainment and comedy especially, I feel like those hyphens actually help in terms of the final product that comes out of it.
Yeah, I mean,
because it's like a singular vision.
There's certain ideas that are just better expressed in a certain format, and like sometimes, just an article, just an essay is the funniest way to present an idea, and sometimes it's a sketch, and sometimes it's like a stand-up bit, So it's nice to like work on all those mediums, because then if you have some idea that doesn't quite fit in the one you mostly do, you have an outlet for it. You don't just have to like put it in a drawer and be like, well, if only I wrote sketches or made sketches, I could do this. But oh well,
Yeah. So what was the first gig out of college?
I mean, I went directly from college to CollegeHumor. I had one day off, and
what year was this?
2005. I started writing for this site when I was in school, when I was a junior. I just emailed the site's editor, Ricky, because I found it one night. It wasn't really popular at my school, in that like era, it would go school to school. So like,
right,
Virginia Tech or something would be really into it and going to the site, and everyone knew about it. But like University of Virginia, no one knew about it. So I just found it randomly. My friend sent me a link to a video, and then I saw that there was like articles on there, and I had been writing some stuff for the school paper, like funny little things about the school, and so I emailed them, and they were like, cool, yeah, you can write for us. And so I was doing that for a while, all through my like second half of my junior and my senior year. And then probably in March or so of my senior year, CollegeHumor sold a book. Like they got a book deal, and they needed people to write it. And they also had just moved the company to New York from San Diego. And they were like, hey, want to come write this book for the summer? Amir is also going to do it. That's when I met Amir. Yeah. And Sarah Schneider was also going to do it. And our friend Ethan, who now works at Mental Floss. So we all came there for the summer, kind of with the idea that it was going to be a summer job. And then like early on, they were like, do you want to just work here? And like doing the book will be the first part of that. And then you'll just stay on and help run the website. And that's what happened for Amir and I. And then Sarah came back a little later. So it was like, it was truly a day. I graduated, I had a day off, and then I went to work at like 9 a.m. on that Monday and started at CollegeHumor.
Wow.
And I knew it was so nice because I got hired to do this book in March, and there were still all these months left of school, but I just truly did not give a shit.
Yeah, I mean,
it was so sweet. And I had this professor in like I think it was a creative writing class. It might have even been humor writing, who hated me and was a real shithead to me. And I got to like sort of just go into that class and be like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it on Thursday because I have meetings with all the publishers for the book I'm writing. So I think he gave me like a B in the class too, which maybe I deserved it, but I don't know. I was like,
was it kind of like a gimme class? Like, should it have been just like an A, just right out, like not really like a tough class?
No, this professor took it very seriously. I mean, I was probably just being a cocky little shit because I had the job, but it felt good to like really just rub it in this dude's face because he'd never liked me. And he was always super critical of all the stuff I wrote. And I was like, yeah, well, somebody likes it because someone's going to pay me to do it, which is like more than you can say, man.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's such a good feeling to be like have a job lined up for like when you graduate. That's like that existential dread of like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I mean,
but you already had it.
It was so nice. I had worked at a talent agency for most of college. I was an intern.
Okay.
And my initial thought was I'm gonna be a talent agent, which would have been horrible. I mean, there's no job I'm less suited to than an agent. I could probably be a manager. I think I could be a manager, not an agent though. So I was kind of just like, I felt okay as the end of college was approaching because I knew that they would let me work there. They were going to offer me a job. But to get a creative job as opposed to like a administrative job right out of college was super exciting.
Yeah. And so you were writing for the site. When did you start doing videos and stuff like that?
Yeah, I don't know the year, but I do remember that the site's founder, Ricky, literally just walked into work one day and he said, we're going to start making our own videos. Because we were posting a lot of videos, but they were mostly of the viral variety. Like there weren't a lot of people who just made sketches and put them online, because it was very cost prohibitive back then. Like you had to pay for hosting, and like it was just a pain in the ass. But Ricky was like, we're going to start doing this, and we made something called CHTV. I think we did like 4 or 5 episodes of it, and it was long. It was like 20-minute long episodes with all these little like sketches or little vignettes in them. Yeah. Some serious talent involved, by the way. I think Kristen Shaw wrote one of the sketches.
Wow. That's awesome.
I think Mulaney and Nick Kroll were in some. Judah Friedlander's in it. Like,
wow.
Really high level of talent involved.
Well, they were just kind of popping in and helping with that. They weren't.
Yeah, they would like be in the sketches or like. It was very sort of amorphous, and like the idea wasn't totally nailed down, but it was an experiment. And then I think we learned after that, like, oh, these 20-minute long things aren't really what the internet wants. It wants like short individual single sketches. So we hired a guy named Sam Reich who had this sketch group, Dutch West, and they made like, I don't know if they made the funniest videos. Well, you talked to Josh, so he was involved in it. Yeah. I don't know if their videos were like the funniest, but they were definitely the best. Like they looked the best. They used professional sound. They took it really seriously. Yeah. So I recommended Sam, and Sam came on, and really, like, from that point on, video was just a major push of this site. And it worked well.
Changed the focus.
Yeah, and it was like that's also when internet speed sort of got fast enough that watching a video wasn't like, a half hour. It wasn't like you had to plan your day around it. Like you could just watch it and move on. Yeah. And Vimeo. Vimeo was made by CollegeHumor. It was like the CollegeHumor developers, their little side project that then exploded into this like beautiful, amazing platform. Became far more popular than CollegeHumor. But Vimeo had started, and they were like, hey, could you guys just make little videos and like have a Vimeo account and make little videos and put them on there just to like fill up the site with content. So we were doing that as well as like doing the CollegeHumor sketches.
Yeah, and so that obviously evolved over the year. How long were you at CollegeHumor?
I think about 8.5 years.
Wow. So were you one of the longest running at the time you left, like of all the people there? Yeah,
I think when I left, I was the current, like the record holder.
Right.
There were only Jeff Rubin had been there as an employee longer than me, and he had left a little before I did to go to BuzzFeed. Yeah.
So that's a long time. Like that's almost a decade of your life. And so what were kind of the like focuses as you went? Like, it's kind of hard to phrase this, but like, did you consciously make an effort to make different things as you went along? Like, I'm going to stop kind of going this way and go a different direction.
Like personally or as a company?
Well, both. Yeah. Like, what was that in line with what was going on with the company, or?
Yeah, I think for most of my time there, my ambitions were sort of growing in step with what the company wanted to do.
Okay.
So when I started, my whole goal was like, I'm going to write funny articles for the internet, and that's what we did. And then as we wanted to sort of be in sketches and do that, we started doing that. And then we made a TV show for MTV, and that was like, you know, I think we had all hit a point in our careers where we're like, oh, we want to, you know, like be on TV. Like we want to make, because for people my age, I don't care how huge the internet is, there's still something about just being on TV that is like, it's just what we grew up with. So the idea of like that you're on it is a super exciting thing and always will be. So, you know, as whatever I wanted to do next, like whenever I sort of got restless, the company was kind of like providing, like opening a door and saying like, hey, we're going to start doing this. Do you want to be involved? And then the last few years, I think like you know, that TV show was canceled, and then
was that Pranked or
no? That was the CollegeHumor show.
Right. Okay.
Pranked we did right after that, just Amir and I, and so that sort of held me over for a while. I was like, cool, like we have this. Amir and I have this thing that, you know, we get to take a break from our normal work and go film this show, and people like it. I don't think either of us was like, this is the greatest show ever made. But it was fun to do just because we got to hang out and joke around and stuff. But I think the last few years, like my ambition had outgrown the company. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. Basically, the company was sort of tightening its belt and being like, all right, we're not going to, like, we're going to focus on the core business because the advertising models online were changing. And, like, you know, if you don't keep up with that stuff, it's a pretty quick way for your company to go down. But I had sort of already tasted this next phase of things. And and so it was really hard to leave just because, and I mean, to their credit, they continued on and now they're making like a lot of TV shows. It was just, when I left, there was this kind of like 2-3 year sort of valley where it didn't seem like we were as ambitious as we once were. And I was like, well, I don't want to stick around if we're not going to be doing things that excite me. So it was time to go. But it was, I mean, I have no complaints about my time there. It was super fun. Best way to spend your 20s.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was an incredibly formative experience and everything, and it kind of led to some of the stuff later on. Like, I mean, like I said it earlier, that's a long time. Like, that's a lot of stuff you made. Like, you made a ton of stuff. That was really good.
I mean, that's the output of a group of people in their early to mid-20s. Just like a feverish output.
Yeah.
And it was great. I mean, I learned a lot, and we kind of just, I don't know, we were all the same age and the same kind of experience level, if that makes sense. Like, so we were very close and still are. Like, that original group of CollegeHumor people are all still very tight. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, like, there's a couple places on the internet, and I don't know how you're going to take this since you work at SNL now, that I kind of see as this SNL of an internet, right, where it incubates these people and then they go on and do, like, really great things elsewhere, too.
Wait, you know what? My little headphone thing fell out. What was that chunk you just said?
Oh, I just
said there's
a
couple clips on the internet.
No, there's a couple places on the internet that I think are this kind of like SNL of the internet, right, where people are kind of incubated there and then they go on and do something else elsewhere that's like
Yeah.
Great. Not necessarily greater, but great as well. But I don't know how you take that since you actually, write for SNL. Because I've told that to other people, like, oh, please don't call me SNL. I'm not like, I'm not that great. My thing wasn't that great, but I think that's kind of the idea behind some of these like websites and groups.
Yeah, I think that, we certainly had that feeling at College Humor. I think we were pretty bald about it too. Like, it was like, this should be a step into this world. Like, this shouldn't be the goal for anyone. Like, it should be your first goal, because the money wasn't fantastic. You're not going to get rich and whatever, like, working there, but you can kind of cut your teeth and you can find your voice, and it gave you that freedom to do that, which is, I think, a lot of what SNL is too, maybe at a higher level.
Right.
It was like, I think SNL used to be the sort of first step, or Second City or Groundlings or something,
right,
to SNL, to fame and fortune. And I think like places like College Humor have sort of joined that rung of performance based stuff, like Second City or the Groundlings or UCB. Yeah, I think they're all in that same kind of area, which is like, there's an audience, there's people watching, you can get some fans, you can get good, and then when you're ready, you can try to make that next step. So we were very aware that we were maybe perceived like that, and I think like very proud of it too. Like, if that's what people, for all of us at least, SNL was such a monster in terms of how much it informed our view of comedy, that like to be put in that conversation was very exciting.
Yeah. So what was SNL on the table right after you left College Humor, or what did you do right after?
No, I submitted to SNL a few times to nothing. You submit and you just never hear anything, and that's pretty much how it goes for most TV shows. But after I left College Humor, I consulted with MTV for a while, which is a lot of fun. They're such cool guys. Like, they're just, I don't know. It's a really fun little world they have there. And again, like SNL or something like that, MTV growing up for me was just like this incredible thing. Like, and so just to like be in there was pretty fun. What
was the nature of that? What were you doing? Like,
just sort of consulting on like the web content side of things. I think they were interested in growing that piece of their business. And so I was just there to kind of field questions and make things. And so I did that for a while. I wrote for a TV show on ABC that got canceled.
Trophy Wife?
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
Did that. I was like doing random stuff. I was like writing jokes for Stephen Merchant, who's one of my heroes. The Office to me is still the greatest TV show ever made.
That's
so I would just just send him jokes, and every now and then he'd like tweet one or use it in like if he was presenting an award or something. Yeah. So that was cool. And then I submitted to SNL and I was in LA. I was living in LA, and I had sent a packet in. And then I was at a party, and I think Sarah was like, "Hey, by the way, are you going to be in New York this day or whatever?" And I said, "Yeah," and she's like, "Great, because you have a meeting with everyone." And I went in, had a meeting, came back a few days later, had another meeting with Lauren, and that was that. It was great.
Wow. So you've been there, what, like a year or so? How long has it been?
This is my second season.
Okay.
So almost 2 years.
Wow. So, that's a big deal. What was the reaction? Like, when you were going to the meeting, you got the job?
It was great. To me, SNL has always been like the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And I think it's I might be stealing this from someone else, but it's like I almost definitely am. I think someone once said to me, like, it's the last job that you want. It's like the last job that you hope for. It's like the best. I submitted an application and got picked job.
Right.
And your next one should be, you know, a show you made or something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's definitely the last, like, the highest level job I could ever hope to get. And it was, I mean, it still feels very surreal. Every time I'm in there, it's like, oh, I work here? This is nuts. Me? I'm just some asshole from Connecticut. This is insane.
Yeah.
What am I doing here?
Yeah.
And everyone there is so cool. So, I mean, I was very intimidated at first because you hear crazy stories about people waiting 9 hours for interviews, and I like brought a bunch of books and like I was real hunkered down. I was ready to wait, and then it was within like half an hour of me sitting down there, like, okay, you can come on in.
That's an incredible experience, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it still is. I mean, it's like, and it's a really hard job. So I feel like I'm never gonna ever be like, I've cracked it. I get it.
Like complacent. You're not going to get complacent at SNL, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's hard to imagine being bored there.
Right.
Because at least now, every week there's like something new I learned not to do. Because it's also such a unique thing. Like there's really nothing that'll prepare you for writing for that show, because it's live sketches and there's cue cards and there, you know, it's just like there's nowhere to sort of train for that. So it's like you go in there and you learn how to do that job. But every week I'm just like completely and utterly shocked that either something went so well or something bombed so hard. Like I feel like I'll never quite figure it out.
Well, you getting a lot of stuff on?
I don't know. I mean, the things I've gotten on I've really enjoyed, and they've seemed to have done pretty well, so I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I check out some of the things that you because it's hard to tell who's writing what when you're watching it, right? I mean,
there's no
there's like people
like go and
credit
investigate.
Right, yeah. But you'll sometimes post like, hey, I wrote this one, and then I'll be like, okay, so that was him.
Yeah, I think ones that
or you and someone else, or
it's almost always me and someone else. Like there's not a lot of writing by yourself there. It's a lot of get with people who you can kind of you guys click, you know, and it's so much nicer to write with someone. It's like. Which is I've like evolved there a lot. I used to very much be like lone wolfy writer. I hated like group feedback on ideas. Like I just did not like comedy by committee. Like I was, to me, the best stuff is like the pure vision of one person. Which I think still holds true in a lot of cases, but with sketches on SNL, it's so much nicer to have other people throwing in their thoughts, and you like everything's better for it. I don't think anything's ever been ruined because people had thoughts and ideas about it.
Well, yeah, the nature of sketch is a little different. Like if a bunch of people were writing a stand-up performance, that might be a little weird. You know, like someone that's stand-up, that's like their singular vision. You know, but I think the nature of SNL and sketch comedy is that, you know, that group dynamic probably helps a lot, and just the nature of that show is conducive to that.
There's just a lot of different voices there, too. Like a lot of, you know, there are people there who will think of a joke that will never, ever occur to me in 1,000 years, just because their approach to a situation or what's funny about something is different than mine. Like their idea of what, you know, comes after this little like plot point is so vastly different than what I would go to. So it's nice to like have those things coming in and keeps your stuff from feeling like predictable or boring.
Yeah. How many writers are on staff? I mean, you don't need to give me a specific number, but I mean, there's a lot, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Like I don't know what other shows have.
Right.
I would say it seems like it's the same amount of writers that like The Daily Show or Colbert or any of the late night shows have. I think I'm really not sure, but again, everyone has a very like unique voice. It's not like there's 15 writers who write the exact same thing.
Right.
So it keeps it really fun. Like, and you kind of get to learn people's voices, and you'll be like, oh, I know who wrote this one. This is from, this guy or this girl.
Mm-hmm. And the nature of TV, of course, is very different than internet content. Was there kind of like an adjustment to writing for, especially SNL, this huge, broadcast legacy thing, versus like even the early days of CollegeHumor where you guys were just starting out and experimenting and stuff? How has it been reconciling those two experiences?
Well, there's certainly a lot more pressure with SNL because again, you feel like you've been, I mean, at least me, I feel like I've been let into like this super elite club and I don't want to be wearing the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. Whereas with CollegeHumor, we were literally making it up as we went along. So it was, and people on the internet just seemed more game to play along with whatever we were doing. Because CollegeHumor is a very early example of sketch online, I think, from an institution, from a company. There weren't a lot of people doing that then. So I think it was new to everyone, and that allowed us to sort of define it in a way. And if you were into it, then you were along for the ride. I think with SNL, there's a lot of expectation on everything because it's had this tremendous run, and there's this huge archive of sketches, and there's 41 years of people watching it and weighing in and saying what they like and they don't like. So there's a lot more pressure, but that's all from the outside. From the inside of it, I mean, I don't recall anyone ever being like, you have to do this or that. It was still very much like, write what you think is funny. And I think just the magnitude of the show just spurs you to try harder.
Right.
Because you don't want to embarrass yourself, and you don't want to embarrass this important piece of American culture.
Yeah. Well, look, I think the show is on an upswing. I'll put it that way. I think it's good. I don't know. People talk about the different years and phases of SNL or whatever. I think it's getting really good, and you're obviously part of that. So
I've always been an SNL apologist my whole life because I feel like I've always thought it was funny. If you really truly watch it every week, there's going to be something funny on there. And I always watched it. And then I would hear people kind of, dump on the show. Mm-hmm. I mean, this happens to me now. I'll meet my wife. One time I was talking to one of my wife's relatives, and I was just meeting her, and she was like, "Oh, so you're the one who works at SNL?" And she's like, "That show's not funny. I don't think that show's funny." And I was like, "Oh, well, sorry." Wow. And she goes, "I haven't watched it since the 80s." And
that's usually the caveat.
Well, that's insane that you haven't watched it.
I don't think it's good, but I haven't seen it in 20 years.
I know, it's not, if it would be not, if you just were completely unaware of how a baseball team was doing for the last 20 years, and you were like, you know what, the Padres are terrible. I saw them back in 1989. They were terrible. They're still terrible. So I've always thought it was good. I think with the new, if you get a new cast, it seems like it takes them a little bit to click, but I feel like the cast we have now is so funny. I mean, they're so incredibly talented. It completely scared me off from ever trying to do any kind of performing in sketch. I see them and I'm like, I can't do that. What was I thinking? Why did I ever think I could do that?
And it's
I'll stick to writing.
it's great for the show because I think a big part of the comedic force right now are a lot of great women on the show too, which is
yeah, they're just crushing.
Historically, has been a thing with SNL, and I think it everybody. That's
I don't
super
even know if that's fair. I always read things like that, and I'm like, there was this one period, I think, when it was very male driven, but like early SNL, I feel like the girls were right up there with the guys. Like, is there a bigger legend than Gilda Radner? Like, I don't think so. I would put her at least up there with Aykroyd and Belushi and Chevy Chase in terms of just like how much people loved her and thought she was great.
Yeah. I agree with you on a large portion. I think that's not necessarily the perception, though, unfortunately.
I know.
But
I feel like
perception
it's
is changing.
For the last, like, literally 20 years, I think this cover story has always been, like, the girls of SNL. Like, ever since I was a kid, and it was, like, or not a kid, I guess, in high school, and it was, like, Molly Shannon and Anna Gasteyer and stuff. And it's just, I feel like it's been very steady.
No, I think I totally agree with you, and I just think the perception has always been what you're describing as like I don't know. I feel like people have always had the like think pieces on SNL and stuff like that, and that's what I'm.
Someone wrote one article in like 1991, and it's just like informed everybody's perception.
I guess that's that, but I'm glad that perception is changing.
I think, if you really look at it, like, and I can't speak for everyone, but, like, I don't see those differences in the show. Like, within the show, I don't think people are, like, putting up that wall of, like, these are the girls and these are the guys and they don't get along. Like, I think it's truly just like everyone feels that they're in this together. That's great. Nobody sees it as this one particular group is fantastic. I think it's everyone's like respects each other's talent, and they're all like everyone's working towards the same goal, which is just to be as good as they possibly can,
That's great. That's how it should be.
That said, the ladies on the show crack me up. So but so do the guys. Everybody does.
No, that's what ultimately everyone's great. I think on this, like, there's so much great talent on there right now. I mean,
it's really stocked.
It's kind of just like taking me by surprise as someone who wasn't watching for a few years, tuned back in a year or two ago. And then be like, wait, oh my God.
It's really fun to watch people develop, too. I mean, that's like one of the best things about that show is like seeing, like I remember seeing a very early Kristen Wiig, Jason Sudeikis sketch. They did these characters called like the A-holes, and they were just these like two jerks. And they were both always chewing gum, and she would.
Oh yeah. Okay, I do remember.
And he'd be like, my girl wants to buy your house or whatever. And I thought it was so funny. I remember like writing a blog post about how I thought these two were so funny and they were going to be huge and like, and I was totally right. I nailed it. Yeah. Like, so it's fun to just watch, both as like an insider and as someone who just likes the show and watches the show, just watching people develop and get so good. And then watching them go off to, like, the stratosphere,
Yeah. Well, look, man, I'm glad that things are going well for you.
Everything but the weather, man.
I hope it's better in a week. It probably won't be.
I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, that's true. So, do you have anything to plug? Anything people should check out? Follow you on stuff, whatever?
No.
No?
I mean, they can listen to my podcast if they want, The Talk of Shame. Mm-hmm. I guess watch SNL.
I was going to say, I'm sure they've heard of SNL before.
Yeah.
Let me go out there and promote SNL. I think they need it for me.
Yeah, it's this new little thing. It's this crazy idea, man. It's pretty wild. You should check it out.
Seriously fun conversation with Streeter. Had a great time. I'm excited to share it with the world at this time. Keep making that sound. I'll never do that, but for some reason I am today. I get a little like verbal I guess tics are the word from time to time, where I use certain words a lot, or I use certain phrases. I don't know. Thank you again to Streeter for coming on the show. So next week on the show, I have Eden Rohatensky on, musician, programmer, coder, all-around busy person, multi-hyphenate, I think is a word that Streeter used in our conversation too. So that applies to that. But Eden is a very talented individual, and she and I had a great conversation. Again, I embarrassed myself, I think. It seems to be a common theme of the past couple episodes, but listen for that and look forward to it, I would say, because it was a good conversation. I had a lot of fun. Alright, so the podcast, I don't know why I started singing there. If you want to keep up with it and everything, you can like it on Facebook, Butterfly Effect Podcast. You can subscribe on YouTube, Butterfly Effect Podcast there as well. You can follow on Twitter, at Butterfly Pod. You can follow me on Twitter, at Ettletod, ETTLETODD. You can email me. Just spaced out for a minute because it's like kind of windy out, and I was caught by the beauty of the swaying branches outside. You can email me, trettleman@gmail.com, trettleman@gmail.com, with feedback, people you want on the show, what have you, whatever you want. And you can, if you're listening to this, I don't know if you're listening on YouTube, whatever. It's on the podcast is on Spreaker. The website is butterflyeffectpod.com. Of course, on iTunes. Rate and review on there if you could, and I'd appreciate it. And I'm glad you're here, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you for listening. It means a lot to me.